Well, good morning, guys, or good evening to you. It's morning for me. I have a pot of coffee brewing at the moment, and today is probably going to be the first day where I don't go anywhere, where I do literally just stay home and read most of the day. So this will be the first vlog that is just unadulterated book talk, so that should be fun. I may do a load of laundry, but you guys won't see that because that's kind of boring. But yeah, so I'm gonna just keep plugging away at the books I started yesterday. Yeah, so anyway, I will just, before I do that, I will probably, relax, drink my coffee, watch some booktube, and maybe finish watching a documentary that I started watching last night. My mom sent me this documentary, about the Vaganova Ballet School, which is this extremely prestigious ballet school in Russia, and it follows 3 or 4 male students at the Vaganova Academy for their last year and the sort of trials and tribulations they have to go through during the last year. And I quite like it. I like learning about dancers. As a figure skater, I sort of relate to them because figure skating is similar in a lot of ways. But anyway, yeah, so I will talk to you guys later. Alright, so it's about, it's 10:20 now, so I think about 3 hours since I first checked in with you guys, and I only read about 50, maybe around 60 pages, yeah, that's a bit less than I have the other days, and I think it's a combination of maybe a little bit of fatigue, mental fatigue from reading, and also possibly the construction outside of my apartment being really distracting. Yeah, I did, again this morning, turn on music really loudly on my headphones to blot it out. I listened to, by the way, to Shostakovich's Fifth Symphony, which I've listened to a few times before, and I really, really like it. And I got myself an extra cup of Constellation coffee with my cow mug with a cow saying "eat chicken" over and over again. What I have read, I thought that I would just give you guys a little bit of an update since it's been a few hours, and I thought checking in might make me more motivated to continue reading. So I started off with reading 30 pages of this anthology of Kierkegaard, and so the first part was his journals, was parts of his journals. The next part that I started today was from his book Either Or, which is probably his most famous work, that really made his name, and is the book that, if anyone's going to read one book by Kierkegaard, it's often Either Or. And that title, Either Or, is actually a sort of riposte to sort of the idea of a Hegelian dialectic, where you have the thesis and then the antithesis, and eventually through the opposition between those two opposite sides you produce a synthesis, and then the synthesis becomes another thesis, and there's another and so on. Kierkegaard took issue with that idea of going but and. He called that a but and idea, where you can actually, have your cake and eat it too, so to speak. So Either Or is saying, no, you have to pick one or the other. But anyway, the first part is an essay called The Rotation Method, which was interesting. Parts of it were really funny, actually. There's one particularly funny passage where he basically starts the essay by saying that most people are boring, and most people are also very bored, and that boredom is the root of all evil. But at one point he says this: Adam was bored alone. Then Adam and Eve were bored together. Then Adam and Eve and Cain and Abel were bored en famille. Then the population of the world increased, and the peoples were bored en masse. And I love that. And he just kind of goes through, sort of, I guess, I don't know, he seems to sort of ramble on about sort of memory, and aesthetics and how to live in the world and enjoy the world. I'm not quite sure I got that much out of it, but after that, that progressed into the Diaries of a Seducer, the Diary of a Seducer, which is not Kierkegaard's own diary, but a diary that he wrote sort of in the persona of someone else. And this character that has ostensibly written these diaries is sort of based on the character of Don Giovanni from the Mozart opera, and also from Don Juan from Lord Byron, but isn't like precisely that character, but is modeled off of them. And so that part of the book is talking about is this man trying to seduce this young woman, basically. And I'm not quite sure where it's going, or why, what it's doing, what Kierkegaard is doing with it. The only idea that I had was that maybe this idea of seducing a woman is sort of a metaphor for enjoying art, perhaps. But I'm not sure. So I'm not quite sure I'm loving it, but it is beautifully written. I can kind of see why Kierkegaard is such a popular writer. He has a very poetic style, very vivid use of like imagery and metaphor and such. So I am liking that, but I'm not quite sure what I'm getting out of it yet. But I'm only 50 pages in, so I have a long ways to go. So I'm not sure I'll work on that anymore because it is kind of slow going because it's philosophy. But I also read 25 pages of reading Lolita in Tehran, and I wanted to read one passage to you. I love the way that Azar Nafisi kind of takes works of fiction and uses them to comment on the political climate that she and these women are living in and their own situation as women. But one particular passage that I underlined is where she's talking about why sad stories can still sort of make us happy. You know, because she was asked by one of the students, like, you know, why do we read something like Madame Bovary or Lolita, where these terrible things happen to people, and why do they make us feel happy, even though they're so sad? And this is sort of Azar Nafisi's response. In all great works of fiction, regardless of the grim reality they present, there is an affirmation of life against the transience of that life, an essential defiance. This affirmation lies in the way the author takes control of reality by retelling it in his own way, thus creating a new world. Every great work of art, I would declare pompously, is a celebration, an act of insubordination against the betrayals, horrors, and infidelities of life. The perfection and beauty of form rebels against the ugliness and shabbiness of the subject matter. This is why we love Madame Bovary and cry for Emma, why we greedily read Lolita as our heart breaks for its small, vulgar, poetic, and defiant orphaned heroine. Yeah, I really like that. I dog-eared the page so I can copy it into my commonplace book. But I am liking this. Again, going kind of slowly. I don't know, that maybe I should just switch books. I might switch to reading some more of classical dance. That might be what I need to do. But anyway, you will know in a minute. Hey guys, so it's now it's about just after 1:15. I've just finished reading Classical Dance by Jane Robbins. I didn't end up quite loving it in the end. I didn't enjoy the second half as much as the first half. It just didn't seem as inspired by the end. It sort of felt like the author just kind of going through the motions. You know, like, she talks about like the art of choreographing a ballet, and all that was just kind of written in cliches, sort of, it felt like. And when she wrote about like performance and the sort of dynamics of performing a ballet, it was again just really sort of cliche and basic. And you know, she would talk about things like, oh well, the wood on the stage has to be right. You know, if you have a live orchestra, the conductor needs to put in a lot of extra work to make the music work with the ballet, and just a lot of it wasn't all that interesting. And also, I felt like when she talked about the technique of the jumps and turns that ballet dancers do. A lot of it, I got lost a lot of the time because verbal descriptions of a lot of these things just don't really work. And sometimes, and what was extra frustrating was there weren't in-text references to which of the photos included in the book referred to which turn or jump or whatever she was talking about was. So, I would go looking around the captions of all the different photos, hoping to find the photo of whatever she was talking about, and wouldn't always quite know which was which went where, and the captions weren't all that well done, I didn't think. So, yeah, I didn't quite end up liking it as much as I was at first. I think I might... I think I'll hold on to it because it does define a lot of just basic terminology for ballet. So maybe until I find maybe a better guide to ballet, I'll hold on to this. If anyone knows of a guide to ballet, a readable one that that they like and can recommend, then that would be great if you would recommend it to me. Because yeah, I'd like to read some more about ballet. I will say though, on the other hand, reading this did make me want to watch ballet more, to actually make an effort to go out and see ballets, maybe. There is actually a ballet company in Des Moines here in Iowa, and so I might have to look out for performances that they're doing. They are doing the Nutcracker this year, but I've already seen the Nutcracker, and it is nice, but I kind of would like to see some of the grittier ballets, like Swan Lake, or Sleeping Beauty or Giselle, so I might not go to that, I don't think. And also, I think I'll be gone for Christmas break when they're doing the Nutcracker in Des Moines. Yeah, anyway, so it was okay. It wasn't bad, it just didn't quite live up to the enjoyment I had of the first part. So anyway, I read about... probably about 160 pages so far today. I am going to continue to work through reading Lolita in Tehran. I may read another of the short biographies in the lives of the great composers. I still have to read my canticles, or my cantos in the Divine Comedy, and I might still start an essay in the Isaiah Berlin. And there's always, and yeah, I don't know. I'll see where it goes again. So anyway, I think I'm gonna now though take a little break from reading, watch some BookTube, maybe watch some ballet clips on YouTube, and take a shower to just sort of unwind a little bit. Yeah. So anyway, talk to you later. Hey guys. So it's now about 5 p.m. and I've read 185 pages. And so I've read 20 more pages of reading Lolita in Tehran, and I'm still finding it very interesting, really liking it. She really is making an effort at providing a portrait of what life was like for people, and particularly women, in the Islamic Republic of Iran at the time that she was living there. And I'm finding that very interesting. She talks about this whole charade where some police wanted to arrest her neighbor, but didn't have a warrant, so they couldn't force him to let them into his apartment. So they went to Azar Nafisi's apartment and asked if they could sneak into his apartment through their backyard. And then that guy, the neighbor, had snuck out of his apartment and was hiding in their backyard, and then there was a whole shootout in Nafisi's backyard, basically, between these policemen and this guy, and this whole thing, and the guy just ended up getting released, because apparently he had friends in high places who got him out of trouble. But she just provides a really interesting portrait of Iran at the time. And I really also love the sort of the dynamic that she and her students are developing in this class that they have. She talks about how they meet every Thursday morning, because Thursday and Friday are the weekend days in Iran. They meet Thursday morning, and originally it was just the discussion sections were just supposed to go from 9 to 12. but then they would start to go overtime because they were so involved in the discussion and just enjoying themselves so much. And so one time, Nafisi finally asked if they just wanted to all stay for lunch since they were there at like 1 p.m. And they did, and then they started to make that a whole thing where everyone would bring one food article for lunch. And then at one point, Nafisi's mother, who lives in the apartment below her, would come up and ask if they wanted her to make them Turkish coffee. Apparently her mother made excellent Turkish coffee, and so then that became a whole thing every morning, or every morning of the class. And I just love the dynamic that they're building, and also like the women in the group don't all agree with each other. Some of them are a bit more religious than others. Some of them are more conservative. And others more rebellious and progressive, and they have these disagreements while having these discussions, and it's just really interesting to see that dynamic develop. So I'm also really liking that, and it should be noted that it is unfortunate, the circumstances that sort of propelled Nafisi to start that group, the fact that she's living under this oppressive regime, but I think that that's kind of what makes this sort of thing all the more important, because this is a way for them to, express their humanity, I suppose, to talk about ideas when they live under a regime that doesn't want them to talk about any ideas other than, fundamentalist Shia Islam. And even that, they don't really want them to talk about it. They just want them to follow the rules that they prescribe for them. So I'm really liking it. Yeah. And then I also read 20 or so more pages of this volume of Kierkegaard. And it's still in the Diary of the Seducer section of Either Or, and it's interesting. He's trying to seduce this woman, but he's doing it in a really weird roundabout way where he tries to sort of get her to feel like she was the one who initiated the relationship in a way. So he encourages this other man who is in love with her to court her, and he helps him to court her, and then somehow through that ends up sort of, it's weird. I'm not sure what I'm getting out of it. I feel like the sort of way that this guy treats women, seducing them this way, is somehow supposed to be a metaphor for appreciating and loving art. I think a big part of this book is the divide between the aesthetic way of life and the ethical way of life, with the aesthetic way of life being more hedonistic and more about experiencing art and such, and the ethical life being more about being upright and doing the right thing. And the next section after the Diary of the Seducer is by a different fictional narrator who is going to represent the ethical side, whereas the seducer represents the aesthetic side of life. So that's what I've read. I am thinking that this volume of Kierkegaard is not the best thing for me to be reading during a readathon like this. Because, less because it's long and more because it is kind of slow going and heavy. I think it would be better to take it relatively slowly, and and that just doesn't lend itself well to a readathon like this. So, I may keep chipping away at it, but I won't be finishing it by the end of this week. But, so, and I just find myself wanting to read some other things, and because this is long, it would kind of take up most of the rest of the week, because, Liasar Nafisi is not super long, but also isn't exactly short. It's, just over 300 pages, so, I am really not sure how much more reading I'm gonna get done today. I'm really kind of tired. I think, again, reading the Kierkegaard, I think really kind of wore me out in terms of my reading stamina. I haven't read my 2 cantos in the Divine Comedy, so I may read those, but I also just may read those tomorrow. But I'm also just a little bit fatigued from making videos for today, so I think I will just have this be the last entry and then start again tomorrow. I may still watch a movie tonight. I was thinking I might watch Persona. It's only 5 p.m., so I have plenty of time to. But I think I'll just do that, and then if I watch Persona, if I read some more tonight, then I'll just give you an update at the start of tomorrow, and then we can start fresh tomorrow. So anyway, I hope you all enjoyed. I look forward to your comments. I think that this will be a shorter vlog, so hopefully you're not all forced to listen to me. Well, I guess no one's forced to listen to me, but hopefully I won't be going on for like a half hour or 40 minutes like I was yesterday. So, anyway, I will talk to you all later, and have a good night. Bye, guys.